I would like to make a formal apology to build mode in inZOI. Up until a couple days ago, I was this mode's biggest hater. I tried using the build studio only twice and rage quit each time and never touched it again. My disdain became worse when I found out I wasn't the only one to notice how wrong this part of the game felt. I hated seeing other players' builds. I hated seeing build mode receive praise on what all you could do. I was a full-blown hater for this one specific part of the game. For the past 5 years, I've taken a preference and eventually a love for building in sandbox games. I think my creations have actually become pretty impressive, and I'm often stunned at how my builds turn out. In games like The Sims 4 and House Flipper 2, I'm able to create such detailed designs. I was anticipating the release of inZOI because I thought, well, assumed the build mode would be just as, if not even more amplified in customization. It only makes sense a game that looks like inZOI releasing in 2025, they would know their build mode had to be comparable to its competition, right? Wrong. Is what I thought after discovering just how different inZOI was. The amount of times I just stared at the screen asking why? Why did they make the game like this? So as I said, I proceeded to rage quit and ignore that entire part of the game for the first 2 weeks after its release. I may have stopped, but everyone else didn't. It felt like everyone was already so skilled at building in a game that is less than a month old. Constantly seeing speed builds and canvas creations made me so jealous. It's funny to think I felt left out. Yes, I was that dramatic about it. It's kind of embarrassing. It took my ego being bruised for me to finally stop being dramatic and figure out why they could and I couldn't. After watching a couple building tips and tutorials and taking one weekend to sit down and start off with the basics, I found inZOI was not the problem. It was me, for the most part. Build mode is definitely buggy, but despite its unfinished state, the game has an incredible foundation that just has a huge learning curve. And for anyone who might have had or is still having the same experience, I wanted to explain what initially pissed me off, but then eventually found a workaround. Also, I want to stress it only took me one weekend to figure all this out. 7 hours of building a one bed and bath. I swear, I need to stop being so dramatic, but I couldn't help it. This game hurt my feelings. I crashed out when trying to get this feature to work. I remember being so frustrated about not being able to move it after placing. The room selection tool solves most of my problems. This option seems so obvious now, but I swear I was so blind to it. Never even thought to just stop and look at the UI. Oh, and the sides of the platform seemed non-colorable at one point. Someone please tell me if I'm wrong because I feel like I'm being gaslit. I promise you the side option was not there when I first played. Am I wrong? Did they patch this in? If so, this is highly frustrating for someone who's not active in the community or doesn't keep up with the news and updates surrounding inZOI, but it's in the game now, and given most of my issues stem from my lack of patience that makes me blind to the easiest solution, I wouldn't be surprised if this was there the entire time. The eyedropper tool is not actually a full eyedropper tool. Say you found the perfect color palette for a window and you want to paste it to other types of windows and doors. Well, you can't because you get this annoying message saying it has to be the exact same object. Pretty restrictive given this is a game in 2025, but of course, if you want something done as efficiently as possible, get the laziest person to do it. I figured out copying and pasting the hex code saves a lot of time. It can be a little tedious when the object has multiple recolorable parts. Still, it avoids having to find the exact shade or having to delete color swatches because you maxed out how many you can save. The room system is questionable at best. The lack of a proper measuring scale and quarter tile placement feeling like a double-edged sword can make building a room very frustrating. It took me a second to realize to complete a room, the end point has to be inside the start point. If you are trying to figure out why a room is missing a ceiling or floor, redrawing a room to make sure it's complete is your best bet in fixing this problem. I've seen way too many people struggle with this on their first playthrough, and a lot of us can relate. When I found the ability of free placement, it felt like I could breathe again. This works best when the large collision boxes feel ridiculous at times and makes rotating so satisfying. Would love to see this feature expanded to be comparable to move objects. This alone would put building in inZOI on an entirely new level. Okay, I'm done with being understanding and finding little workarounds. I have to rant a bit because there's still so much wrong with this game that I feel like I shouldn't have to find a workaround because these need to be fixed as soon as possible. Seriously, inZOI, do it now. I'm joking, but do it eventually, please. The way flooring works in inZOI is diabolical. I just need to know who thought of, developed, and greenlit this choice because what the fuck? I'm sorry, but this is the biggest problem with inZOI. I couldn't care less about the bugs, the unnecessary use of AI, or the need for more gameplay. Why would anyone who had any experience in gaming think the best decision is to force the player to select or deselect each individual tile to have multiple floor types in one room? And the use of the placeable floor tiles makes it even worse. The smallest is so huge, and the lack of sizing without the ability to overlap just ruins it completely. I can make an entire video complaining about the flooring, yet it is possible to use with patience, which I've already made it clear I have none. And probably won't ever. This is one of the huge reasons I only see this game as something to keep my attention until Paralives comes out. If inZOI wants to become a game I keep in my rotation long term, flooring has got to be one of the first to see an overhaul. What is the reason behind the choice to not have a measurement scale when drawing a wall? Again, do they expect us to count each individual quarter tile to know how long a wall is? Also, it would have made things so much easier if there was an indicator to let us know when we've lined up with the existing wall. Missing details like this makes me wonder what their playtesting before early access was like. Correct me if I'm wrong, but early access is supposed to be the foundation of a game, and the player looks for cosmetic or gameplay features to add. But I guess it could have been missed or whatever. They want suggestions. Well, here's mine. Please add a measuring and snap tool. Thank you. From one lazy gamer. One lazy, impatient gamer. Please, there's a lot of us. Has anyone ever noticed that the taller wall heights are kind of pointless right now? We don't have any windows that fit or make sense to put on a tall wall, and you can't stack the windows either. Another feature I hope they fix eventually. I would actually be pretty satisfied if the game only came out with the shortest wall height. That's not really that short at all. It's kind of tall. So I wouldn't mind if this is an update that came a little later, but eventually an update will be needed. inZOI is making me miss The Sims 3. I miss being able to create a room entirely out of wicker furniture simply because I could. inZOI only allows you to make logical decisions when changing object material. I get why, but what if I want it to be unlogical? Now, I want to avoid using the word cringe because the connotation around the phrase is kind of ignorant, but for me personally, I don't care for the quirky or wackiness and whimsical gameplay. Believe it or not, there is a very large player base who don't use life sims to escape reality and use realism to create immersive stories, or even use in-depth realistic stories as their version of escaping reality. I'm one of those players, but if I want to create a room that is nothing but 70s green carpet, then let me create a room that is nothing but 70s green carpet, please. I deserve to be as wild as I want to be. I am very surprised by how many features you notice that came from The Sims 4. It doesn't look that way on the surface, but trust me, they're there, which I'm not mad at. The game is different enough aesthetically where I have no issues to the approach of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Selecting objects based on room feels very familiar, and glad to see it made it into inZOI. But you know what else should have made it in? Selecting objects based on type. Trying to remember which room a specific clutter item is from is so time consuming. It would make everyone's lives easier if there was a drop down to sort by clutter items or any other item type in the game. This has to be something multiple people requested, so hopefully this is something that will come in the next year or two. Okay, rant over. Despite all the bugs and the missing features, build mode is very impressive and has crazy potential to become amazing. And again, it only took one weekend for me to realize this, to sit down and really try to work with this new version of building that doesn't need to be a carbon copy of what I played before. Doing so has made me get my groove back, and this is the first time I've been pretty good at building within the first year after a game's release. With the addition of the fixes I mentioned and years worth of new objects, I can easily see that I stick around for the build mode at the very least. So yeah, I apologize for being over dramatic and writing off an entire mode of a game so early, but this apology, it's conditional. Do better, inZOI. I'm giving you the grace to be better, so hopefully they don't mess this up. Don't mess it up.